As a guitar player with a nearly insatiable lust for acquiring new guitars and new gear, every once in a while I get an idea. A terrible idea. A reckless, irresponsible, awful idea. I think I need a Gibson Explorer.
First of all, you do not need any more guitars.
With my wife 100% on board with the idea, I decided to start my guitar safari in search of the perfect Gibson Explorer. My first stop was Reverb, the online internet mecca hub of all used musical gear. Surely this is where I would find a Gibson Explorer well within my price range. Okay, maybe Gibson's not on the table. Let's check out the Epiphone prices. Obviously, Epiphone isn't as high quality as a Gibson, but they're still cool guitars. They play great, they have great components, and I can swap the pickups if I want to. Okay, holy Jesus, these people want a lot of money for their guitars. All right, let's check Guitar Center and see what they've got. Man, I don't know what's going on. I mean, obviously everything is getting more expensive these days, but I am just really striking out on the used gear market. I'm gonna check one more place. Let's check eBay and just see if anyone's selling a used guitar at a decent price. Wait a minute. What are these? These can't be real Gibsons, and they don't say Epiphone on them anywhere, and they all look brand new. Why are they so cheap? Oh, wait a minute. These are chibsons. Now, by this point, if you're familiar with me or my channel at all, you know where this is headed. I have a pretty familiar relationship with chibsons, or for the layman, a Chinese-produced counterfeit Gibson guitar. These are all over the internet. Sites like AliExpress sell these guitars for pennies on the dollar compared to the Gibson or even Epiphone counterparts. Now, most people, when they see these chibsons, they get a little bit scared because you never know what you're gonna get. They could send you a pile of crap that's made out of plywood and it's gonna have really crummy parts and electronics on it. And a lot of people don't wanna deal with that hassle. They don't wanna spend their money on something that is going to be unplayable, unusable, and is just going to sound like trash. Part of my background, though, is in guitar repair and doing guitar teching, so I've got a little bit of knowledge and experience on my side when it comes to doing advanced setup techniques, replacing parts and electronics. I was fairly confident that if I could find something that looked really good for the right price, I could probably swap all the parts out and do a decent setup on it, and I could get something that sounds and looks really great. So what are my reasons for wanting an Explorer guitar? Well, first of all, I'm a big dude. I'm really tall and I like bigger guitars. There's a lot of reasons that I love these guitars. First of all, the weight is really evenly distributed. You get that whole back fin area on the big body that kind of counterbalances the neck, so they're very rarely neck dive, and they just look cool as hell. I mean, they're super awesome rock and roll guitars. So when I saw these on eBay, it tickled my brain a little bit. So now it's time to figure out which one I want to get. My eyes are immediately drawn to the Pelham Blue models. I think that is such a great look, and I've, to be honest, always wanted a Pelham Blue Explorer, but I've got a lot of Pelham Blue instruments, and I feel like I want something that really sticks out. So they've got some wine red ones, which also is a great color, but again, I've got red guitars, and if I'm looking for something with a lot of explosive aesthetic quality, then I want to get something that's really different. So that's when I landed on this. This is an awesome looking guitar. It's a white custom Explorer with gold hardware, and actually this is a copy of a Gibson custom model. It was an artist signature model made for Lizzie Hale from Halestorm. I'm not the biggest Halestorm fan. I think they're great. I think Lizzie Hale is extremely talented. I've seen him in concert before and she puts on an amazing show. If I'm honest, the music is a little too... it's a little bit much for me, but I love the look of this guitar. And I thought, hey, the white looks great. It's an Explorer. I love the custom binding on it. It's got like an ebony fretboard with custom inlays. This looks sweet. It even has a matching white headstock. On top of all that, you cannot beat that price. One thing that I've noticed about these eBay guitars, they are built in China and then they're shipped to a distribution warehouse in the US, so that when you order one of these from eBay, it's shipping to you from California. So this guitar arrived to me in 8 days. Now, I can already predict I'm gonna have so many people in the comments asking me where I got this, who the specific seller is, but here's something to remember. When I was scrolling through eBay looking at these listings, I saw the exact same photos of this guitar listed multiple times from different sellers. What I think is going on here is they're all made in the same factory. It's all the same company, and they just start up new seller profiles. It could be a way to sort of game the system and make sure none of them look like they have too many negative reviews, which is what I think is going on, because all of them have between 90 and 100% positive reviews. So I just looked for the one that had the most amount of positive reviews and also had some customer reviews that included photos of the instruments. All those signs were pointing me in the right direction, and I decided to make the purchase. So like I said, the guitar got to me in 8 days, but it was shipped via FedEx. Word to the wise, if you have any choice over it, do not ship stuff through FedEx. FedEx is terrible. This is the way the guitar arrived at my house. Not on my doorstep, it was casually tossed in a snowbank on my driveway. It is what it is, man. Well, FedEx strikes again. It appears that there was some damage in shipping. This chip on the neck is unfortunate, but I'm just looking over the neck here to see if there are any splits or seams or cracks that indicate that there's structural damage here. Unfortunately, it looks to be purely cosmetic. Hi, Editor Jeej here with an update. I contacted the seller and told them about the issue, sent them a photo of the damage, and they responded that they would be willing to give me a partial refund for the guitar. So I offered $50 and they said totally fine, and they refunded my money. So now we are down to a total amount spent of $180 with $30 shipping, which is bananas considering how great this guitar already looks and feels. Okay, welcome to the bench. So far, most of the guitar looks okay, but this is pretty egregious. We've got a huge chunk of lacquer missing out of the corner of the neck here. Now the good news is I've kind of looked this over a little bit and inspected the wood, and the rest of the neck joint seems to be okay. Now, moving from ugly to bad, I don't have a whole lot to say here other than the obvious stuff when buying one of these knockoff Gibsons. The pickups, all of the metal here looks really cheap. The gold I think looks really cheesy. And of course the pickguard, I was planning on replacing this anyway. I don't like the gold, nor do I want this to really be a Lizzie Hale Explorer. But the rest of the hardware is just kind of chintzy. This switch isn't very good, but that's all gonna go. I've got new pickups on the way. I'm planning on replacing the bridge and the tailpiece, and most likely the tuners as well. One of the things a lot of these Chinese copiers get wrong, specifically with Explorers, is the shape of the body. I've seen so many of these where this upper bout here is too rounded off or too shallow or just misshapen. Same thing with this horn here. Sometimes it's too skinny, sticks out way too far, the pickguard looks weird. I mean, the body looks like an Explorer. This looks like the right dimensions, the right size and everything. It looks great. Same thing with the headstock. I've seen some of these Explorer copies with this gigantic, ridiculous banana-looking headstock. This looks pretty close to a Gibson or an Epiphone. Now, I was really excited to see that this guitar did not have a Gibson logo silkscreened on it. I didn't necessarily want it to say Gibson because I want this to sort of be a customized hot-rodded version of my own guitar. But they did go ahead and include a stick-on decal Gibson logo. There's a whole moral gray area about these counterfeits and the resale market and everything like that. I've heard of other people who have ordered these chibsons and have specifically requested no logo on the guitar, and they've put one on anyway, so I'm glad that they left it blank in this case. Okay, so with our initial inspection over, it's time to just get a baseline demo. Let's test out and see how bad these pickups are, how bad the electronics are, and how bad the fit and finish is. As I'm recording this, something strange is happening to me. I've played these chibsons before and the pickups are always garbage. The electronics always feel really crummy and bad and plasticky, but I'm starting to wonder, do I actually really like this? These pickups sound great. It's not as bad as a lot of the ones I've played, and the fretwork feels awesome. The setup right out of the box feels really good. Okay, so we've recorded our control demo. Now it's time to strip all the parts off and see what's going on under the hood here. And the first thing that shocked me when I removed the pickguard is that they used an upgraded switch. Typically with these Chinese copies, and even with some lower end legitimate brands, they'll use these import style, I call it like a box style 3-way switch. They're really low quality. They're not very good. They're loud and clicky, but this appears to be like the upgraded Pro line style switch. I can't say for sure whether or not that's what it is, but this is like what you would find in an Epiphone guitar, so that surprised me right away. Now the second thing is, when I lifted these pickups, I was actually kind of surprised. They appeared to be different, again, than the Chinese crappy humbuckers that have shipped in every other chibson that I bought. These have a stamp on them that say made in Korea. I have no idea what they're from, what they are, what they're made out of, but they feel and look higher quality than most of the other chibson pickups. And on top of that, they even come with a 4-conductor wire. So if you wanted to split these and do a split coil pickup setup, they're set up for that. It's not just a regular hot and ground wire. Now the pots aren't anything special, but they're about what you'd find on like your mid to lower level quality Epiphones. They're not the super tiny cheapo mini pots. They're full size. They have a decent sweep on them, but since I've already started collecting parts, I may as well take these out and replace them anyway. Now I don't really care for the gold hardware. I've just never been that big of a fan of gold hardware anyway, and I definitely want to change the pickguard because I think that's the one thing that's really tying this into the Lizzie Hale signature model. So we need to find a way to change that, and I think black would look really nice for this. Since it's still the dead of winter, I don't want to try spraying anything outside because I think it's going to do, the cold is going to do weird things to the paint. We're going to go to our local hobby store and get a roll of black vinyl contact paper. Since we're changing all the hardware anyway, we're going to go with a chrome. The first thing I want to change is the bridge, and I found a website called Philadelphia Luthier Company, something like that. Here's a screenshot of their website. They have these awesome little conversion studs that will fit right into the inserts for a metric style bridge and give you an ABR1 size post, so you can put any Gibson bridge on there that you want. The last thing to look at are the tuners. To be honest, out of all the parts that were included on this guitar, these were probably my least favorite. They just felt a little stiff, and I don't want them gold anyway, but I do kind of like those pearl buttons. So I'm gonna order a set of Goto tuners, and I am going to replace the machine heads on them so that we keep that pearl look, but we have a nice silver tuning machine, and they're going to be a higher quality part. Okay, so we have everything we need to change this pickguard. I've got this roll of black stick-on vinyl, and I'm just going to basically trace around the pickguard with an X-Acto knife here and cut out the shape. After sticking this on, there's some bubbles under here, and it could just be that there was dust. I tried to clean off and smooth out the pickguard as much as I could, but I did this pretty quick. Honestly, I'm not super stoked with how it looks, but from a distance, it's fine. Once it gets a little warmer out, I'll bust out a spray can and probably just spray it black. The reason I didn't just order a new one is because these Chinese guitars are built to whatever specs they want. And the possibility of a Gibson or even an Epiphone-sized Explorer pickguard fitting on this is pretty slim. I figure it's easier to just modify this one than to try and order a new one and then just do a bunch of reshaping and re-drilling. I know this fits. It should be easy to change it black. The next order of business is fixing that chip in the paint on the neck. There's a couple different ways to go about this. The way I decided to do it was to get this little lacquer pen so I could fill in the chip on the bare wood to at least get it white, and then I decided to fill that with some thick viscosity super glue. Normally, if this were a flat surface, it would be very easy once the glue is built up and dried to take a razor blade and scrape it along the edge and get it smooth. But since this is right in the pocket where the neck meets the body and there's a lot of curves and contours, it was really hard to get a razor blade in there. So I decided to just try and evenly sand it with some sandpaper. It doesn't look great, if we're being honest. Again, from on stage, I don't think anyone's gonna really notice it, and it's purely aesthetic. If I so desired, I could probably get out some white spray paint and just touch that up. But for now, it's totally fine. It didn't really bother me that much in the first place, but figured I'd give it a shot. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at the fretwork. And the frets on this look pretty great. They look like they did a good job, and it appears that they even tried to like hand roll the edges of the frets. All in all, the frets seem very level. The neck feels very straight too. When I eye these guitars up for a setup, the first thing I look at is the truss rod. And if it's got a weird wavy twist in it, that's a bad sign. That's one of the only things that I can't really do anything about with these Chinese guitars. This one looks great. The fit and finish of this thing is really, really good. Like to the same standard that I would expect from Epiphone. And to be honest, that's a little alarming for Epiphone. The fact that these companies can make these cheap copies, which we've always disregarded as just fake counterfeit junk, but to actually make really nice guitars for a fraction of the cost. And especially considering the fact that they're not including any branding on the headstock, this is a $180 guitar that looks awesome, feels great, and is the perfect platform to put some new pickups and electronics in. Okay, so it's a couple days later and I've got all my parts ordered. I've got a set of used pickups off of Reverb, I got my bridge conversion posts in, and I got some new potentiometers. So now that we've got all the electronics and the guts out of the body, let's take a closer look at how this is constructed. So it looks like it is using a mahogany body, and to my eyes at least, the wood looks pretty decent. One interesting thing about this compared to a Gibson or even an Epiphone Explorer is how they decided to route the upper bout here. In a Gibson or an Explorer, this is going to be a thinner channel route, but it appears that they've gone the swimming pool route option, and we have this wide, large area, which could be kind of cool. If I wanted to get really crazy with modding, I could add extra switches in there or a button. I wouldn't have to do any additional drilling or routing. I mean, hell, if I wanted to do active pickups, I could fit a battery in there perfectly. Now, another thing that's really common that I always have to do with these chibsons is to enlarge the hole for the potentiometers. Even though these are pretty decent pots they used in there, they have the smaller, thinner shaft. So I have to take a reaming file and basically just widen that out a little bit so that the larger CTS pots will fit in. Now it's time for everyone's favorite part and my least favorite part, which is wiring. I don't know why this should be more relaxing to me, but I just have never been extremely handy with a soldering iron. I'm perfectly serviceable, and at the end of the day, the guitar is gonna work just fine, but it's tedious, it takes a while, and my hands are too big to deal with little wiring bits. One trick that's always been helpful for me is to just take a piece of cardboard, poke holes in the same spacing that it will be on the guitar body, and then just mount your pots right on there and wire all of them together so you're not trying to do that while they're in the guitar. I can get all my wires attached, and so I can just drop the whole assembly in the guitar, connect my pickups and the switch wires, and we are good to go. So what I've decided with the wiring of this guitar is I want to use a Gibson high quality CTS pot for the bridge volume. I've got a brand new CTS pot for the tone, but for the neck pickup, I've decided to get a push-pull pot to use as a coil split. And I specifically ordered Gibson pickups that had the 4-conductor wire on there so I could split them. I just feel like having a coil split on the neck position would be a little bit more useful than on the bridge. The last thing to do here is install a new output jack, and I always go with the Switchcraft jacks. I think they're a much better component than what was in there. I always replace these even on Epiphone guitars. I just prefer a better output jack. It's super easy. This is a really cheap part too, so just solder that on and we're good to go. It looks like a little bit of a rat's nest in there, but I tested it out and all the pickups and everything are working. So the next thing to do here is to install the tuners. And again, this is pretty easy, although one thing that I did have to do, since the orientation of the set screws on the Goto tuners is slightly different than the ones that came on the guitar, I have to drill new holes to get those in. And now it's time for the beauty shots. I mean, what can I say? Dude, look at this thing. You gotta be kidding me, $180, look at this. Now, I'm gonna do a grand total, a tally of what I spent on all the parts and everything, which was a little bit painful, but I think I still made out for cheaper than I would if I had even bought a used Explorer guitar, and that's before I even get to put in higher quality components that Epiphone even uses. Playability is awesome, sound is awesome. I've got my coil split here for the neck pickup, got a Gibson bridge, I have a higher quality tailpiece on here. These are all CTS pots in the back, but yeah, it looks awesome. This looks great. I even have a Gibson Switchcraft selector switch on here. I love the look of the white. I love the binding. It's heavy as hell. I love that. I don't know what else to say here. I mean, I think we should just kind of let the guitar speak for itself. Let's do some tone samples and let's write some riffs with this and we'll check it out. If you have any questions about this, feel free to ask. Aside from where did you get it, because you can do some very easy eBaying and find this exact guitar. And to be honest, I don't even know if the seller I bought from still exists. So check it out on your own, do a little bit of research. Don't be scared of these Gibsons. If this is something you're interested in, it's a great opportunity to learn more about guitar repair, guitar modification without breaking the bank. You know, a lot of people are into guitar kit building today. I would say this is like a step before that. So you don't even need to know much about gluing up necks. You don't have to know anything about finishing the guitar. You can just use this as a basic blank platform to mod with whatever parts you want. And if you don't want to go through the hassle of changing the bridge, you just leave the one that's on there. I think we've gotten to a point now, even in the last 5 years, where the quality of these has really, really gone up. To be honest, I'm just not as scared to take a gamble on one of these guitars. So thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. God, I hope I don't get another idea like that.